Hello everybody and welcome to our virtual 67 Pall Mall. Apologies for the late delay. We're having some Zoom technical issues this morning. Zoom must be taking Sunday off. Anyway, so later on today we'll have a tour of Switzerland with Joël Neby Mordaunt, and then a tasting of Château de Fargue in Sauternes with Philippe de Le Salus. And then finally a look at the more delicate side of Napa Valley with respected author Ellen McCoy. And now we're very pleased to welcome Chantal Gonet from Champagne Philippe Gonet, who will be telling us about their artisan range of growers champagne. So please chat away at the side. Please tell us what you're drinking and where you're drinking it from, and hashtag 67 from home for social media. As usual, we'll have 15 minutes at the end. So I hope you have a nice glass of Gonet ready, and a big hello and a welcome to Pascal. Hey, hello Pascal.
I'm Chantal.
Chantal, sorry. Sorry.
No problem.
I'm so sorry. I've been, it's been a fraught morning.
Absolutely. So, hello everybody. I'm very happy to be here today in the middle of those very nice vineyards from Le Mesnil-sur-Oger. And today is Mother's Day in France. So I will be very happy also to share a glass of my 3 champagnes with you for this special day. So I'm gonna introduce the house right now, the Champagne house, Philippe Gonet, and then we're gonna taste 3 different champagnes that are distributed by Tiger Wines in London. So you're gonna have the Brut Reserve, which is right here, and then the Blanc de Blanc Extra Brut 3210. I'm gonna explain you later what it is. And then we're gonna have the Vintage 2011, another Blanc de Blanc, only from Le Mesnil, which is a Grand Cru, of course, a little bit older. Wow. So I'm gonna share with you the screen. So it's gonna be easier if we share this introduction. Voilà. Et voilà. Share. Can you see it? Yeah, I think it's okay. So Champagne Philippe Gonet is a champagne house located in Le Mesnil-sur-Oger in the heart of the Côte des Blancs that started in 1830. We are the 7th generation of the family. Oops. Yeah, so I want to show you the house. This is the house located in Le Mesnil-sur-Oger, at Le Mesnil, right next to the church, and also right next to Champagne Salon for those who already have visited the place. And it's an old house where my great-grandfather, Charles Gonet, started to live. He married a girl from Le Mesnil, but the family, the Champagne Gonet, started in Vertu. Actually, this is the origin of the family because my great-grandfather married a girl from Vertu, just next to Le Mesnil. You know, it's in the south of the Côte des Blancs. And her family was already a wine grower family. Voilà. So in this house, that's where my brother lives. We are co-owners of Champagne Philippe Gonet. And this is also where you have all our cellars. And you're mostly highly invited to visit us. Of course, you have to take appointment, and I'll be very happy to welcome you, or my brother will be happy to welcome you, because we think it's important to take the time to open you our doors and share a glass together, and take the time. If you come to us, we shall take the time to explain you everything. Voilà. So we have very old cellars dating from the 18th century, exactly from 1783. We have, of course, a lot of bottles. We produce annually 200,000 bottles. So we have about 4 years of stock, of course. We like to keep our wines a very long time, especially because we are specialists of Blanc de Blanc, of Chardonnay, and you need to age those wines longer to get all the nice aromas and the maturity and the nice taste that you want to get. So the style of Champagne Philippe Gonet is mineral driven, of course, because we like to show our terroir and to show the purity of the soil that we have, and have those very nice mineral driven dry and fine wines. I'm going to show you where our vineyards are located. So they are located, first of all, in Le Mesnil-sur-Oger. Here you can see Le Mesnil-sur-Oger in the heart of the Côte des Blancs. We have also vineyards in Vertus and Auger. This is the historical birth of the family. Then we have 1.8 hectares in Vendée, which is located in the Côte de Sézanne. And then we have 7 hectares in Montgueux, which is just right next to Troyes, not really in the Côte des Bars, just before. We're going to talk about the soil, which is very special too. And then we have also 7 hectares in the Vallée de la Marne, Pinot Noir and Pinot Meunier only, which are in La Chapelle, Montaudon and Le Breuil, very nice small villages. And we have a little vineyard also in the Montagne de Reims. It's called Fontaine-sur-Ailly. So it's quite interesting for us to have so many different vineyards, because you really see in 1 year, one cycle, what is going to be a vintage. And it's also a lot of work, because we need to have people in all those places and all the tractors and everything. So quite difficult, especially this year, because it's growing very, very fast. The cycle started very, very early this year, but it's really, we are very lucky, because we can do blends of all those vineyards, and it's more, of course, it gains in complexity. Voilà. So in terms of winemaking, we use different methods. We use stainless steel. We use beton, which is cement. Well, I don't remember the name, sorry. And we use also foudre, as you can see on the picture. I'm there with my brother and his dog, Cohiba. And so my brother reintroduced, he's the generation who reintroduced the wood, because my father and my grandfather, they did not use any oak in the cellar. So he has foudre, 60 hectoliters, and he has also demi-muid, which is a traditional wooden barrel in Champagne, 600 liters, much smaller. And we produce a wine which is called Roi Soleil, but we won't talk about it today. So quickly, just to talk about me, I am actually the one who do all the sales and who travels. We started with my brother in 1993. So almost 20 years ago, and 25 years ago, sorry, even more. And I liked at this time to travel. So we are exporting right now 75% of our production in more than 35 countries. Asia, of course, Japan, United States, UK, of course. And I like to travel, I like to meet people, I like to share with passionate people. Of course, when you open a glass of champagne, it's always with someone, and it's always a great experience. So I have lived in Singapore, I have lived in Miami as well, and well, that's always a pleasure to meet people. And Champagne is always about pleasure, of course. So talking about my brother, he studied in Burgundy. He likes the Burgundy style, and I would say that that's how he works. He separates each plot in different tanks. His idea is really to to show the different complexity of the different terroirs. So if you blend everything at the beginning, of course, you won't have this complexity at the end. So he separates each plot one by one. And he likes very much his terroir, and he likes to show the minerality and the freshness, the fineness of the wines, which is probably the most difficult part. And now talking about the vineyards. So as I explained, we have vineyards in Le Mesnil and mainly in Mongueux as well. In Le Mesnil, we have 13 plots, and all the vineyards are an average of 30 to 40 years old because we replant every year about 1 hectare. We own totally 20 hectares. We are focused on environmentally methods, so no herbicide, no insecticide, and biofertilizers. This is the Google map of Le Mesnil, very interesting to see. So the village is right here. Here in the middle, you have the Clos du Mesnil, 1.8 hectare. We are right here. This is the house. Very interesting that the house is built on 5 different stories. So we use a lot the gravity. So we don't use that many pumps actually. So quite interesting for the harvest, pressing, and when you move the wines from tank to tank. So we have a vineyard located just here, next to Salon. Actually, Salon is just right here, Salon de la Motte. We have 1 vineyard in Auger, very close to Le Mesnil, of course. Another here, Le Bas de Zalieu. Here it's called La Haie de Chalon, Léo Jardin, right next to the house of my mother, which is a very old vineyard planted in 1929. So a very, very old grandmother, and which is always 1 plot that goes into our cuvée called Belemnita. Belemnita is our top cuvée, and we produce it only on really top vintages. It's a very small plot actually, 0.3 hectares. And then we have here Le Quegneux, Les Hautes Mottes, which is more in the plain of the plain part of Le Mesnil. Montjoly, you've probably heard of it, very nice vineyard as well. And then when you go up up the hill, here Les Bacossiers, very, very steep, but also producing very good grapes. Voilà, that's Le Mesnil-sur-Oger. And then in Mongueux, Mongueux, I don't know if you have been there already. It's a little hill in the middle of nowhere, and it's just one slope, which is facing south. So quite warm place, I would say, in Champagne. So here we have 6 different plots. Le Tertre, very steep. Le Revers du Chutat as well, small one. Les Jognelles, very good one. Beauregard, very steep as well. That's you can even see here the white chalk, very pure chalk, and we cannot plant this part because it's too steep. Les Paluets and also Voie Creuse. Voilà. So we can say that my brother is a good expert of Le Mesnil and a good expert of Mongueux because we have plenty different plots in different places. So that's really interesting for him because during the harvest, you can really see where the maturity is starting to be great. And of course, each plot has a different maturity. Okay, and then we're gonna talk about the soil. It's made of different layers of strats. So talking about geology, actually, we have to talk about the Parisian Basin, because Champagne is located at the end of the Parisian Basin. And you see here Paris, which is in the yellow part, which is the last layer of those different strats, you know. Actually, all those strats has been, they're deposit of microorganism that comes from the seas. Because you know that during the different eras, it lasts about 500 million years to build all those strats. So I'm gonna go to the next image here to explain you about the movement of the different seas. So you had 3 seas, the one from the north, the one from the Alps, and the one from the Atlantic. And actually, the movement were really changing a lot, coming back and forth. You had different eras, humid, dry, hot and cold, and the seas have been moving many times, and that made those different strats. So let's come back to the first image. So you see it makes like different plates that has been sinking because it has been so heavy. So the last one is the yellow one, so the youngest one. So the Champagne is here, the green one, and here is the Côte des Bar, which is a little bit older than the Côte des Blancs, which is about here. So this is Normandy and this is Vosges, so it's coming from west to the east, easy to understand. And Champagne was created during the Crétacé supérieur. Voilà, Cretaceous. I have another image to show you, quite interesting too, because here you see exactly where we are. So here you have Reims, which is a little bit, not really at the end of the Parisian basin, but in the green part. And then here is the Montagne de Reims, actually in red. And then you have Épernay right here on the Marne River. And when you go a little bit more south, here you have the Côte des Blancs that goes up to Cézanne, actually. And then here you see Troyes, which is in the green, it's in the dark green part. And Montgueux is just here 5 kilometers on the west side of Troyes, actually a little hill here. And so we can say that Montgueux is probably almost exactly the same soil, but it's more in the south. And this is probably the beginning of the hell green strats deposit, and this is the end, actually. Voilà. So here I'm going to show you a picture. We see the south exposure of the Côte des Blancs, which is about Vertus. Just next to it, it's Le Mesnil, which is more southeast sun exposure. Vertus is more on the south, actually, and another part here is also southeast. And here we have another picture of Montgueux Hill, which is only south exposure. So it's warmer. And actually, we always started the harvest earlier than in Le Mesnil. So between 3 to 5, up to 7 days difference between the start of the harvest in Montgueux and the start of harvest in Le Mesnil. It depends. But again, Montgueux is always earlier than Le Mesnil. Montgueux is about an hour drive southern of Le Mesnil. Okay, and then I'm gonna talk about what is in the soil, actually. Those microorganisms are coming from the sea. So you had a lot of shells, of course, a lot of micro oysters, a lot of sand. So you can find ammonite, those little snail. Here's those oysters. It's a very specific oysters actually. And you have ammonite. You have probably already seen an ammonite, which is the bone of the shellfish actually. So you have small and big ones. At that time it was, of course, big animals. And when you dig in Le Mesnil, you can find very easily ammonite and belemnite. It's quite easy to find. And sea urchins, that's what you find mostly in Montgueux, actually, and a little bit of flint, which we don't find in Le Mesnil. So a little bit of difference between Le Mesnil and Montgueux. So Montgueux, I discovered that when I researched about when was made the little hill of Montgueux, that it was made a little bit earlier, so it's a little bit older than Le Mesnil, and it's a little bit higher. The highest point is the 268 meters, and the choke, the deep of choke is a little bit deeper than in Le Mesnil as well, because Le Mesnil has only 40 meters of deep choke, white pure choke, and the highest point is 246 meters, so a little bit smaller than Montgueux. Voilà. Then I mentioned that in Montgueux you have half of the vineyards compared to Le Mesnil. 215 hectares planted, and in Le Mesnil is 435, mostly Chardonnays. I think there is maybe just one hectare of Pinot Meunier. And in Montgueux, it's mostly Chardonnays as well, and there is probably 20% of Pinot Noir. Voilà, so that's to talk about the soil, but what is important is not only the soil, of course. The influence of the terroir is coming from the sun, of course. We have 1,800 hours of sun in Champagne, which is about 300 hours less than in Burgundy. And the average temperature is only 11 degrees, so quite cold, of course. You have the same climate in London, more or less. So it's the limit, northern limit to grow grapes, of course. And that's why we produce sparkling wines. Otherwise, we would produce red wine. So then the wines are influenced also by the precipitation, the rain, of course. So quite a lot of rain in Champagne. That's why it's quite difficult to have to work with biodynamic methods, because we have a lot of rain. And what is important also is the wind to dry everything, because when you have a lot of rain, you need to dry it, of course. And then the earth, the soil, white chalk, we talked about it, and what is inside, mostly marine microorganisms. Voila, a couple of pictures. You see here the press room where we are next to Salon. Actually, this is our vineyard. Next to it is Salon, Champagne Salon Vineyard. Voilà. I suggest you open already your bottles, because I like when it's it breathes a little bit, because I think that like the wines, the champagne should breathe a little bit before you taste it. So you can open it and pour you a glass of each wine. So I'm going to open first of all the Brut Reserve. Voilà. Okay, take your time to do it. Okay, and then the 3210. Maybe you have done it before. Sorry, I didn't did it, and I took the champagne out of the fridge quite early because I don't like when it's very, very cold. I like when the champagne is about 8 to 10 degrees, and especially for the vintage 11, actually, because this champagne needs to be a little bit warmer to show all the aromas. Voila, done. Okay. So in terms of winemaking, I talk about it, I think. Actually, we use small tanks to vinify plot by plot, fragmented winemaking, traditional, of course. And we use a high proportion of reserve wine. We separate each different vintages in different tanks. We don't blend everything. We don't do what we call a kind of Solera system or a perpetual reserve. We separate each vintage to keep each complexity, actually. So it's between 3 up to 7 different vintages in the non-vintages, in the reserve wine. Here you have the range of our range of 9 champagnes. We do mostly Blanc de Blanc, 6 different Blanc de Blanc actually, and 2 blends, and 1 rosé. We use the blending method, so red wine that we produce from red wine out of Vertu, which is the south of the Côte des Blancs, very, very good Pinot Noir. So we blend 90% of Chardonnays with 10% of red Pinots. So it makes a very, very nice, fresh and delicate rosé. And we have 6 different Blanc de Blanc. So today we're going to taste 2 Blanc de Blanc, the Zéro Dosage and the Vintage 11, and the blend, which is a special label for our distributor in London, Tiger Wines. And voila. So now we're going to do the tasting. First of all, Champagne Réserve Brut. So it's probably the most difficult wine to make because it has different vineyards, different vintages, and different grape variety. So quite difficult to maintain every year the same style, because you can easily understand that it's easier to make a great wine. You just choose your best juice, and this is always very easy to choose, of course. And to do a blend, it's the most difficult part. So this one is made of 60% Pinot Noir that comes from the Vallée de la Marne. I show you at the beginning of this webinar. And we have also 30% of Chardonnay coming out of the Côte des Blancs and Mongueux, of course. 10% of Pinot Meunier, also out of the Vallée de la Marne, La Chapelle-Montaudoin and Le Breuil. This is mainly 2016. 2016 was an interesting year because we harvested quite early. I think it was on the 25th in Mongueux and the 29th in Le Mesnil. Very early spring, and that, you know, the cycle is about 90 days between the flowering and the harvest time. So early spring, early flower, and early harvest, of course. I think, if I remember well, lots of mildew in the Pinot Noir, but the Chardonnays were great. Okay. The bottling was made in May 2017. We always do the bottling in May because the weather is always nicer and warmer, and you need, you know, warm to do your second fermentation in the bottle. So we just did actually the bottling of the vintage 2019, which is a great vintage as well. And for the dégorgement, you should see on the back label of your bottle, because we write it on each back label, is the number of lots. So here, mine was disgorged in March 19, so about 15 months ago. If you can see, it's just right here at the bottom. Easy to see. So maybe you have the same dégorgement. So 2 years in the bottle plus 15 months after dégorgement. So 3 years in the bottle. That's a minimum. In terms of dosage, it's 7 grams, which is the maximum that we do at Philippe Gonet. We usually, it's mostly 5 grams, but for this one, which is the youngest, we add 7 grams, and we use only concentrated must, so sugar from the must, and not cane sugar. So cheers. We can start to taste this one. Nice white fruits, mainly pinots, so mainly red fruits, of course. White fruits. It's a quite fruity wine, actually. But you can see the style of Philippe Gonet, which is fresh at the end. That's very important. So pleasure and minerality. We have the two sides, and the two sides of our style. Pleasure with those fruit, a little bit of brioche, actually. Quite intense, full in the mouth. And at the end, you have this freshness. It's not very long in the mouth, actually, but it's very pleasant. Do let me know. I like to have your comments, how you like it, how you taste it. Okay, and we're gonna go up to the next one. Voilà, the Champagne Extra Brut 3210 Blanc de Blanc. So I need to explain you what it is. So 3 means 3 years of aging in the bottle. So it's not mainly 2016, but mainly 2015, and 30% of reserve wine. The 2 means 2 different vineyards. We blend here 50% Chardonnay from Le Ménil and 50% Chardonnay from Mongueux. And I will explain you what you really get in the nose and in the mouth coming from each terroir. And the 1 means the grape variety is only 1 grape variety, Chardonnay, because it's a Blanc de Blanc. And the dosage is 0. That's the last digit, actually. So 0 dosage. So that's not so easy also to do a 0 dosage. You cannot decide to have 1 bottle and you say, okay, I'm going to try to do it without any dosage. You have to prepare and make sure that the wine is ready to accept a 0 dosage. So the wine shall be friendly enough or open enough or gourmand, charming enough, not to need a little bit of dosage. Voilà, so in the nose, I always get those tropical aromas of the Chardonnay. So to me, it comes from Mongueux, because Mongueux has a sun exposure, and what you get is always the tropical mangoes or lychees or pineapple also. And it's more intense. In the mouth, you have a nice structure and very long finish. And also the salinity that you get, which is very nice, of course, coming from the soil, from the chalk, from those fossils, from those marine microorganisms, ammonite, belemnite, oysters. So that tasting, that taste really the terroir. And I really like to drink it with oysters, of course, because of the salinity, but also with, you know, Iberico ham, a smoked ham, which is very nice because you have the intensity of the smokiness, and it comes in opposition to clean your palate. So it's really nice to clean the fatness, of course, of the ham. Voila, nice one. I like it very much today. And last one, it's a vintage 2011. So vintage 11 was also early harvest. We started to harvest on September 8th, actually, so quite early as well. In this one, it was mainly 2015, and we started the harvest September 20th, so quite late harvest, which is quite normal. We are used to early harvest in August, and I think this year is going to be again early harvest in August. But usually in the past 10 years, we had harvest mid of September, which is the normal time. Voilà, so talking about 11, voilà, this is the one who needs to breathe, because you have already secondary and even tertiary aromas of the Chardonnays, like grilled almond, toastiness, smokiness. You know, it's really the brioche that you put in your toaster, and that make these special aromas. And a little bit of mocha. I don't know if you can have this. So it's a kind of almond that has been worked a little bit, and that is a little bit grilled. Once you taste it, sorry, it's quite intense as well. And you have the citrusy at the end. So this is only Chardonnay coming from Le Mesnil, Grand Cru. And you have, I like also this freshness, which comes from citrus fruit, but I would say a little bit like lemon. It's a little bit more acidic than the one before. Even the dosage here is 5 grams, and it's actually a lot of difference with zero dosage, but I think you have more intensity in the 2011. Of course, it's older, it's with more maturity. Nice intensity, yes. This freshness is really pleasant. You have a more flavorful wine, a bigger wine, of course. I would pair it probably with a nice risotto with scallops, or even with asparagus, which is sometimes difficult to pair, asparagus. But I think with this one, it would be a very nice match. The Parmesan, of course, always with champagne. Champagne and cheese is always a good match. Voila. Voilà, I think I have finished the tasting. We can always talk a long time about those wines. But if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer any question.
Yes, Chantal, yeah, there's a few questions in the box. Someone is asking, what temperature would you serve these champagnes at?
That's a good question, actually, because I would advise different temperature for those 3 wines. So to me, the vintage 11 needs a higher temperature than the other ones because it's older. First of all, you need to open it a little bit in advance because it needs to breathe. And I sometimes even decant it, so that helps to get a higher temperature. So I would say 10 degrees is fine, because when you drink it too cold, it narrows all the aromas and you don't get all these flavorful aromas which are so delicate, so complex. So 10 to maybe 12. 12 is also possible. For the zero dosage, it's more or less the same actually, because if it's too cold, you don't get the aromas, especially because here, when it's very, very cold, you get only the salinity, the end of the mouth. So I would say maybe 8 to 10 for this one. And then the Brut Reserve, which is more friendly, fruitier, I think 6 to 8 is very nice. I like to use also quite large glasses because you can swill it breathes, and you get more aromas. Voilà.
And also, James is asking, he says he doesn't normally like extra brut, but this one's very, very good. And how long do you think he could keep it before he needs to open if he bought more?
So you have one key point is the disgorgement date, which you have on the back label. So very good detail to check. I think even after 3 years after dégorgement, it's quite difficult to make the difference of evolution, of oxidation, I would say, of the wine. So 3 years, no problem. And then you have different aromas, different, I won't say tertiary aromas, but secondary aromas that comes up. And you may like it or not like it, of course. You lose a little bit of fruit. You lose a little bit of acidity as well. So you lose something probably. Because once we sell it, once we decide to put it on the market, it's ready to drink. It's not like all the red or white wine that you buy in different regions. Champagne, once we put it on the market, it's ready to drink. But some people like it when it has spent 3 to 5 years after dégorgement, because you get more tertiary aromas, like in the 2011, the vintage 11. And it comes up to more grilled aromas, you know, like those older Chardonnays that are also very nice, but it's different. Not so fruity, more smoky, toasty, I would say.
Okay, and someone else is asking, what kind of glasses would you ideally recommend to serve each of the different ones in?
The one that suits you. Now, I think you can throw away your flute. This is totally the end of the time of the flute. You need something that it's quite large. It's a kind of flute. This is a kind of flute, but it's a very large flute. So you have something quite deep, I would say, at the beginning, so you can see the bubbles coming up. By the way, there are no more bubbles in this one, probably because I drink it already. And then enough place into the wine so you can swill it, it can breathe, and you get more aroma. It's like a wine. You need to let him breathe to really open itself. And then I think you should drink it slowly, because if you have a very high foot like this and you drink it very, very quickly, the wine is going into your throat very far away, and you don't get all the aromas of the wine. It's important to have the wine at the beginning of the tongue, at the middle of the tongue, and then at the end of the mouth. Each part of the tongue, you get different aromas, and it's important to have it one after the other. Is that a good answer?
Okay, and people are asking about the treatment in the vineyards. How much treatment goes on in the vineyards?
Well, right now, we started 10 years ago to stop any herbicide. It's a lot of work because you have to plow the vineyard. Either you can plant grass or you plow the vineyard. And we decided to plow the vineyard. Only a little bit in Mongueux, where it's very steep, we grow grass. Otherwise, we plow all the vineyards. And you can imagine that when you go into the vineyards and plow, you take out some racines. I don't remember how you...
Roots.
Sorry. The roots of the vineyards are broken, and the vine needs to get again into the soil and need to grow again those roots. So they are weaker so you need some years to renovate all those roots and to be able to grow again. So it takes about, I would say, 5 years for the vineyard to recover from ploughing, actually. If you plant a new vineyard and you start from the beginning to plough, that's different because the roots are used to it. So they go immediately, they go very deep into the soil. But if you change your method, that's when it's the most difficult part. So, of course, new plantation is now without any problem, but the old plantation are always a problem. But there is a time of adaptation that lasts about 5 years, and then every vineyard recover. So that's about herbicide. In terms of insecticide, we use the pheromone trapping system. I don't know if everybody is familiar with the pheromone trapping system, but everybody use it in the 8 villages where we own vineyards. So that's a very good system. All the insects with those pheromone are totally lost. So male and female cannot find each other and they cannot reproduce and so they go some other place, and they don't attack or they don't eat the vineyards or the grapes.
Okay, and someone else is asking, what is the overall production in bottles for the Maison?
200,000 bottles.
Okay.
1,000, yeah. We buy a little bit of grape, Pinot Noir, that go into this champagne. We buy about 10%. That's why, because usually with 20 hectares of vines, you should produce 170,000 bottles, but we buy a little bit of grapes.
Okay.
Because we have mainly Chardonnays, and we need a little bit of Pinots to go into this cuvée.
And are you making a vintage every year? And if not, when was the last time you didn't make a vintage?
We didn't make. It's up to my brother, actually. So I always want vintage. I would rather go for a vintage every year because it's always pleasant to have a vintage. But if you do a vintage every year, it's not what you call a vintage. So 11 is the last one. Before that, we had 09. We had a very little bit of 08. We had 05, of course. We had a little bit of 03. We had 2002, 2000, but since 2011, we did only 2017, so nothing during 6 years. Well, 12, 13, 14, 16, no, 17, 18. So yeah, 7 years without any vintage. And you never know, actually. It's up to him. So sometimes on the analysis, everything is perfect. You have everything to make a great vintage. And once you taste it, something is missing, and you need this special complexity, this special taste that will make you think, yes, this is a great vintage. So no, it's not every year, of course.
Okay, great. Well, Chantal, thank you so much. I think that's, if there's any more questions people want to ask, if not, then I think we just need to say thank you very much for sharing your lovely champagnes with us and giving us an hour of your time to explain what you do.
Yeah, it's a great pleasure always to meet champagne lovers, and we're always happy to welcome you. So do not hesitate to call us. We try to make a great time with you. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Chantal, and enjoy the rest of your Sunday.
Yeah, thank you. Same to you.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.